Alright, so the project for today, I recently bought a little Kawasaki minibike. It's a 1971 Kawasaki KV75 or MT1, but it's here behind me in all its glory. Pretty sweet bike, but going through it, trying to get it running, the throttle cable was pretty notchy. It didn't pull real easily, so pulled the cable off. And this is a two-stroke bike, so this end hooks to the throttle tube. It comes down, and then there's a splitter here. Goes into two cables. And this little short one goes to the carburetor. This longer one goes to the oil pump. It's got a separate oil tank with an oil pump that gets activated every time you twist the throttle. That way it mixes the gas for you, so you don't have to do it. So the problem was the inner wire for the short cable was starting to fray. So right in here, there's just some little frays that are sticking out, and they were catching on the housing. So that's really the only thing wrong with this cable. These bikes were made from 71 to 79 or 80, I can't remember. But even though there was quite a few of them made, there wasn't a whole lot of aftermarket support. Not a huge overstock of leftover parts. There are a couple of companies that will make you a cable. Motion Pro, Flanders, to name a few. And then you can find some new old stock original OEM Kawasaki cables online, but they're expensive. I've seen them for $95 for this, and that's not worth 95 bucks to me. I only paid $250 for the whole motorcycle. So I worked for quite a few years in a motorcycle shop, and we used to make custom cables all the time. That shop is no longer in business. Otherwise I would have gone there and gotten all the parts needed. But I was able to find someone that had a few of the little components that are required. You'll see on the end of the cable here, there is a little ball. It's actually just like a little cylinder piece. And actually what it is, on the original cable it was all cast around it, but when you make your own, it's these little brass cylinders. It's a 3mm diameter, 5mm long. One side has a flat shoulder, the other side is countersunk just a little bit. We'll talk about that a little later on. So I've got those. For source cable, this one's frayed, I needed a new one. Stopped by my local Walmart, picked up a brake cable set for a bicycle. It was about $7. Comes with 4 cables, plenty of donor stuff there. I'm going to reuse the black housing that's on this, but the inner cable will get out of there. This is one of them out of the kit. I already pulled it out. But basically, I'm just going to cut one of the ends off, pull it out, and then do what I need to do. Keep on watching. I'm going to change the camera angle a little bit just to get a little closer view so you can actually see what I'm doing. A few other things that are needed. Solder. We always used a 40% tin, 60% lead mix. This is an acid core solder. And then some liquid flux. Also a good soldering iron. The little stick irons usually don't get hot enough. I've seen people use propane torches and stuff, but it just heats the cable, the actual wire part, a little too much, and I don't like that. So I'll use this. You notice I've got a little zip tie here because these guns, they're only on when you pull the trigger. So You can kind of slip that zip tie up over it, hold that gun on, make sure it stays warm. But let me move the camera and we'll be right back. Make sure the countersunk part is facing up. You want the shoulder towards the cable. Slide it on. Just spread that wire out a little bit just to give you some tension. A little too loose. There we go. There. Now, we just repeat the process. And I probably should have slid this in the other way so I wouldn't have to deal with working around this big splitter, but the other thing you can do, if you've got the room, is just kind of hang it off below. Like so. Make sure you guys can still see that. Couple drops of flux. Iron on again. It's been 5 or 6 years since I've done one of these. But the first end I did, I was heating the brass cable end. This time I just heated the cable below the cable end, and like I said, with the capillary, solder goes towards the heat, so it just sucked it right down in there once it got up to temperature. I'm just gonna clean some of this flux off of here. And again, I've got the little nub there. So I'll just take a small file. Just real light strokes. Just clean it up. One thing to note, if you're doing an end that goes around a bend, like for example this end that hooks to the throttle tube, this cable comes out and it wraps around the throttle tube. If you're doing something like that, you want to really make sure you don't get solder anywhere where it's going to bend, because that solder is going to make it very stiff, and it's not going to want to bend. It's going to want to stay a straight section. So when you do, they make brass fittings that look similar to this. You want to make sure you don't really get much solder down past the end of that. So that's why you kind of want to use minimal flux, because basically wherever the flux goes is where the solder is going to go. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up and get this thing put back together. Thanks for watching.